Imagine with me for a moment that you and I are on a trip in New York City. We're just about to head back to the airport, but we have time to stop for lunch. So we go to this restaurant that's really highly reviewed and recommended to us. And we pop in for lunch before we head to the airport, and we're reminiscing, we're chatting about our trip, and we're saying, hey, you know what, this has been an incredible trip. We've seen some absolutely amazing things. We saw this and we saw that, and New York's such an incredible city. And you say to me, hey, you know what, it was a great trip, but one thing that I didn't get the opportunity to do that I really wanted to do was I wanted to try a hot dog from one of those New York street vendors, like you see in the movies. And we're talking about this, and it's a really fancy restaurant, and our server overhears our conversation, and just before they bring out our lunch, they come around the corner and they put down a plate on the table, and they've cut up for us a couple of sections of a New York hot dog from a street vendor that they went out and grabbed for us so that we could try that, just to make our trip to New York a little bit more special, a little bit more extraordinary. It's already been a great trip, but they really wanted to help send it over the top for us. And then we finished off an absolutely incredible lunch and head to the airport. How would you feel in that moment? Imagine how you'd feel. Imagine the impact of that, of someone kind of overhearing our conversation and then going that extra mile to bring that hot dog to the table and just blow our minds. You tell everyone you knew, right? You talk about that restaurant for years on end and that incredible story and the amazing part of your trip. And it was all as simple as a hot dog and somebody paying attention. And you might say, well, who does that? Well, at a restaurant called 11 Madison Park in New York City, that story happened with a gentleman by the name of Will Guidara at his restaurant. He was running the front house of restaurant there, and he had that story happen where he got that hot dog and just blew the minds of the customers at the restaurant. It's a really fancy restaurant. And that story triggered for Will a journey that sent him on this, what he calls unreasonable hospitality journey. That restaurant went on to become even greater than it already was, getting 4 stars in the New York Times, 3 Michelin stars, being voted the top restaurant in the world. And Will talks about it, and he wrote this book called Unreasonable Hospitality, The Remarkable Power of Giving People More Than They Expect. And it's a great book. Highly recommend it. You put it in your library. It's not just about the restaurant industry. It's really an incredible opportunity to understand hospitality, serving people. As I read it, I really saw it as a leadership book going, it's more like unreasonable leadership, unreasonable servant leadership. How do you serve people? I spent a few years in the restaurant industry myself as a server as I was coming out of university and transitioning into work and whatnot. And I really enjoyed that time in the restaurant industry. Had a lot of fun serving people. Hospitality industry is a lot of fun. It's an adventure, great opportunity to kind of make some extra money while you're going to school. And what I found interesting about Will's book is he talks about this there's the serving, staff at the front, they call it front of house, serving people the food. And then there's sort of what they call back of house. And there's always sort of this disconnect where the food is made. There's always a little bit of a disconnect and a divide between back of house and front of house. And he talked about how at 11 Madison Park, they really wanted to fuse it together into one team and not just be, really fancy restaurants. It's often very, very food focused, right? It's very, very focused on, the food that hits the chef really runs things. But they really, at 11 Madison Park, they wanted that to be one team, one sort of experience for their guests, not only with just like the most outstanding food, but the absolute outstanding service. The biggest takeaway that I have from the book came right in the first chapter, but it actually took me the whole book to really properly understand it. And Will says this line right in the first chapter where he says, service is black and white, hospitality is color. And I loved it when I read it. I'm like, that's a great line. It really kind of sticks with you. It resonates. It feels comfortable. It makes sense. And it's sort of inspiring, right? There's parts of life that are black and white, and there's parts of life that are color. And we gravitate towards that idea that life is full of color because our lives are full of color, right? We have ups and downs. Life is always happening, as I talk about, right? Life happens to all of us. But I really started to read the book and started to unpack it. And I really started to see it as, yes, service is black and white. Maybe management is black and white, but hospitality is color. Leadership is color. True servant leadership is color. And I saw that as an opportunity to make an impact. When he talks about hospitality as color, it's that opportunity to go above and beyond. And when you make an impact, you're developing trust with people, you're growing that relationship with people. It just opens up these incredible opportunities. And I started to think about it from the perspective of, hey, management strategies, some of the things that are talked about in a business world can be very black and white, right? You need this, you need this system, this process, you got to have these agreements in place and all these different things. But leadership, true servant leadership is absolutely color. It's absolutely nuanced. It's definitely focused on the individual. And when I started to think about things like the hot dog story he talks about in the book, these impactful stories that he talks about in the book, how incredible would it be for us to take that and apply that in our life and be able to impact the lives of the people that we serve, whether that be our guests, customers, the team members that we have on our team, our family, when we can be that way, serving with nuance, leading in that sort of beautiful way of meeting people's needs where they're at. So how do we do this? Because I'm not sure about you, I don't own a restaurant or currently work in a restaurant anymore, so the hot dog story isn't really likely to duplicate itself anytime in my life in the near future. So I pulled two key ideas that I wanted to share with you from the book. There are a lot of great ideas about how to take this idea of unreasonable hospitality and apply it in your life, but two key ones that I wanted to give you today so that you can take and sort of run with this and at least get you going on your journey. And the first key idea is being present with those that you get the opportunity to serve. Will talks about this. He talks about the power of presence and being there with intention. It actually requires you to slow down a little bit, be paying attention because we're all walking through life, and understand the nuances and needs of the people that we get the opportunity to serve. In our world where we're constantly being pulled in a million directions, multitasking, doing all these things, there's something incredibly powerful about being present with intention, looking for the opportunities to serve, looking for opportunities to go above and beyond, looking for ways to help that person that you're getting the opportunity to serve. So that ability to do that is something that needs to be practiced, but it's something that can be developed. But that's going to open up the opportunities. You might be saying, hey, well, I love this idea of unreasonable hospitality. I want to serve my team, but how do I find those ideas? How do I find those opportunities to serve people, to go above and beyond? It starts by being present. And the second key idea that I wanted to highlight here is that one size fits all doesn't actually really work when it comes to true leadership, to servant leadership. I think there's really a tendency in business, I see this myself and in life, that we're always looking for processes and systems to sort of simplify things, and we want things to be processed and simplified. But what we do when we do that is we can take some of the nuance out of it. And true leadership, true servant leadership is one-to-one. It's not one size fits all. True servant leadership is one-to-one. You got to be able to put solutions in place that are going to help in the specific areas, but then be open to the possibility that, hey, you know what? We might need to break this system to serve this customer. I might need to break this system to serve this team member. And I see this in the business that I work in. The opportunity to create roles for people that play to their strengths has been incredibly powerful and created a much stronger organization rather than building a role and then trying to fit people into it. That can be really difficult. I know that might be a little countercultural right now, but I think there's really something powerful there when I can build roles and build teams of people that are playing to their strengths. That actually allows our organization and the team that I get to serve to be stronger, to be better. There's a danger when you put in so many systems and processes in place that you have, in life or whatever, in business, that all of a sudden you get conversations like, well, that's not how we do things around here. And that's dangerous because that could actually alienate a customer or alienate a team member that might have a specific need in that moment that you might be able to meet and actually just create, great friendship, great trust, whatever that is in that interaction, build that opportunity for more impact. It's really a takeaway for me of being open and flexible in a world where it seems like we're pushing towards more and more systems, more and more processes to kind of hopefully help our lives, but it actually can limit us. Being open and flexible is going to create more opportunities for us to provide more, to be more of the servant leader. But do you want to know what I really learned this week? I really enjoyed reading this book. It was a great book, lots of great takeaways. I took some notes, highlighted a few things as I went through it. And then I put the book down and then I thought, you know what, I really want to share this book, obviously in a video, and share what I learned with all of you. And I want to be able to make sure that I'm taking it and applying it. But the ideas of what it is that I'd read in the book actually weren't super crystal clear to me. What I did, obviously, is then I went back. I started to go back through the book. I started to listen to some podcasts that Will had been a part of. I started to look up some different articles. And all of a sudden, my understanding of the book, my understanding of Will's idea of unreasonable hospitality came to this sort of fruition of crystallization. I started to understand so much more than the first time that I actually went back through the book. And it really got me thinking, how many times have I read a book, enjoyed it, loved it, read it, highlighted it, taken notes, whatever it is, and then finished it and put it away on my bookshelf and immediately forgotten about it, not actually maybe fully grasped what was there. And it didn't take me a ton of time as I was putting together the effort, the pieces of this video. It wasn't like I invested hours and hours and hours, but that effort of reading the book and actually going back and really crystallizing what I can learn from it. What could I share with you? What can I apply into my life? That was huge for me. So I really I learned this week that the effort that it takes to go back and dig in a little more when I finish a book or when I learn something new can just open up so many more doors. And the effort is so worth it. Like the amount of time and effort required was so little compared to the benefit that I feel in this moment with an understanding of what Will wrote in his book. So I want to ask you today, is there a book that you've recently read that you should go back and do a little bit more of a dig, like actually grab a little bit more meat off that bone and be able to take that and apply that in your life? If not, Unreasonable Hospitality is an excellent book. Definitely should have it in your library. Will be a great place to start.